Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be looking at this. This is a Yamaha VMAX, and this was lent to me by Motoro USA. Check him out on YouTube. I'll put a link in the description below. He has all sorts of motorcycle content and really good YouTubers to follow. So check him out, like his channel, and subscribe. And he let me borrow this bike. He got a great deal on this. These bikes are very difficult to get great deals on, but he got it as a non-working bike, and he did work on this. He did a lot of work and brought it back to life. This is a 2003 Yamaha VMAX. It's what Yamaha considers a power cruiser. It's a very unique bike, and unfortunately these are extremely expensive. They're very unique. They have a very small niche, and they are collector's items. I've been trying to get a VMAX for a very long time, and I have never been able to buy one because the prices are just insane. So let's look around this bike and see how weird and quirky it is. Before we get started exhibiting this bike, I want to show you a little bit of the history of the Yamaha VMAX. Let's find out about this popular power cruiser.
The new 145 horsepower VMAX from Yamaha is like no other motorcycle you've ever seen before. But you may have noticed that.
The Yamaha VMAX 1200 was built around the same time that Yamaha made the 1983 Venture Royale. The Venture only had 90 horsepower compared to the VMAX's 140 horsepower, but both shared the same V4 style engine. So Yamaha had to do something interesting to create more horsepower. They created a V-boost system that shared the intake pathways between the front and the rear cylinders, that used a servo motor operated by a butterfly valve, allowing each cylinder to pull from two carbs simultaneously once the engine hit 6,000 RPM, effectively supercharging each cylinder all the way up to the VMAX's aggressive 9,000 RPM rating. Back in 1985, 140 horsepower was quite a lot. Jump to 2001, Yamaha R1 had 148 horsepower. And it also had the notorious 26,000 mile valve interval that Yamaha is known for. The bike remained mainly unchanged from 1985 to 2007. In 1993, it received a bunch of updates, and that's the generation where most VMAX owners will target, the 1993 and up, because it had better brakes, it had better, larger fork tubes, and also had a alternator update. The designer of this bike was inspired by hot rods and drag racing in the American culture. The VMAX engine was a radical departure from the traditional inline-4 and parallel twin configurations that were used in most motorcycles at the time. The engine layout, combined with advanced technology at the time, gave the VMAX its distinctive character and performance. The VMAX gained a reputation as a muscle bike due to its immense power and torque. It quickly became an icon of drag racing and street racing scenes, thanks to its ability to deliver thrilling acceleration and top speeds. The engine is a V70 degree V4 engine. It weighs dry 597 pounds and wet 631 pounds. It's got a 4.0 US gallon gas tank, and miles per gallon are about 35 miles per gallon. This has got an 18-inch front wheel, dual disc rotors, conventional forks. This one's got a little bit more of a modern headlight. Of course, all LEDs are always a good idea to have, and I think this looks much more contemporary, and it's got upgraded LED blinkers, these little tiny ones. We're starting to see a little bit of the distinct character that these VMAXs had. This was a passion project for Yamaha. So even here, I have never seen this sort of styling for holding the speedometer using this kind of like metal piece. Symmetrical scoops, twin scoops on each side. The ignition on this is located in a very odd position. Most Japanese bikes in particular, the ignition is always one place, and that's in the steering head location. But here, it's on the side here. And, you know, I think at first I wasn't quite sure, but it works fine. And it is very distinctive because cruisers generally, especially Harley Davidson, they have them on the side. So maybe Yamaha was trying to create a little bit of that. Interesting, the little accents of chrome that Yamaha created. So in this plastic, they wanted to show you this, the carburetor on each side. And they molded the plastic in order for you to see that. That's a very interesting design cue that they had. On each side you would have this cover, and you do have foot pegs, but I don't think you would want to carry a passenger. When this bike first came out, this tire was absolutely massive. Nowadays, you see these tires, these very large tires on bikes. You have dark siding tires, but this was an incredibly large tire for the time. It's a 150/90 15-inch. So in the front you have 18, this one's a 15. And I think when I first saw the VMAX, I saw the cast wheel, and it's this humongous piece of metal, and it's so strange looking, and I think it really adds to the look of this bike. The brake has got these two nipples on the side for bleeding, which is rather interesting. Normally you just have one. I have the stock exhaust, a shaft drive, so very low maintenance. You might be wondering, where's the gas tank? And if Motorola USA did not tell me, I would not know how to fill this thing up. Unfortunately, it's a 4.0 gallon tank, and this bike gets horrendous gas mileage. So you'll be filling this up quite often. So the gas tank is here. This is the support for the driver, and also very important because the bike has got so much torque and pull that you're constantly going back into this, and there is no pull for the seat. There's these two levers on each side that you push downward, and this pops out, and this is where the gas cap is. To get your key out from the ignition, put it here, turn it to the right, and you're kind of wrestling with this. Most people's hands are not really that big or that small, so you're going to be like pulling it out from there. And okay, one thing you're going to have to keep note is there's an arrow. You want the arrow to aim to the front of the rider, to the front of the bike, and push it back down, pull it out, and that's that. So you do have to get out of the bike to fill it up. You know, I prefer to fill it up while I'm still on the bike, and of course, with this, you are at a gas station, struggling to put your key in here because your hands are too big. You just like pull it out. Then you have to put this somewhere. And often I put things on the seat, and that's one thing you're going to find out about the VMAX. It does not like putting anything on the seat. Also, be careful not to close this with a key in there. I mean, I'm not sure. I guess they don't really care that you might lock your key in there. Styling wise, that's a great idea. It makes the gas tank completely invisible. So this bike is really an exercise of styling for Yamaha. Most people like to set their helmets here, as I found out. I put my helmet here all the time, temporarily, and go do something. But this seat, it's round. It's so round. It's like it's like one of the horse type of seats, completely round. Your legs actually go over it really well. It feels unlike any other seat I've seen on a motorcycle. On this left side, the only practical thing about this motorcycle is having a helmet lock. Also gave you a nice center stand to work on the bike. Normally you would have a tachometer where the rider could see it. But this one, they decided to put it right in the middle. Is your temperature gauge, this is your tachometer, and of course this is your indicators: neutral, turn, oil level, fuel, high beam. This button is probably an accessories. On the left side you have a bar end mirror, and you know, it doesn't come stock with this. It does have the space here for the traditional mirrors, but this is pretty decent quality mirror, aluminum and everything, good glass. Then you have nice grips, you have your headlights, you have your turn signals, and of course you have your horn. This is all very traditional type of layout for Japanese bikes. You also have a hydraulic clutch. On the right side you have the same layout, the mirror, the front brake, your kill switch, but this is something completely new to me. Fuel reserves are on the left side under the tank. So this one is here. And I think the reason Yamaha did this is because the gas tank is so small, this bike gets such bad gas mileage that you're going to be using this quite often. At around 80 miles per tank, I've already had to switch it to reserve. So let's open this up again. This is where the fuel is. You kind of push it in, this pops out, and then you grab this. There we go. Appreciate that Yamaha made this very easy to remove, that you don't need any tools. So this is where the filler is for your tank, and the tank of course is here, 4 gallons. Always good to have everything down low, and of course the battery is also very down low. Then you have all your electronics here, and you do have a fuel filter as well coming here. The battery is right there, so it's a little bit on the hidden side, but it is nice to keep all the electrical stuff very close by. Slot for your key, and if you push down slightly, turn it to the right, you can remove this. There we go. And voila, you have access to your coolant. This is a liquid cooled motorcycle, and you have your fuses right here, very accessible, and of course your air box. So I do like that this is very easy to reach and service. Still uses the stock speedometer. This bike actually sounds pretty fun to ride at around 45 to 50 miles an hour, especially at 4,000 RPMs in the rev range. But the speedometer does go to 155. I believe that the top speed is something like 140, but I'm not sure I would be able to do that because you get so much wind hitting you on this bike. And this one only has 12,611 miles. The only other thing that you have on this speedometer is this trip reset dial on the left side, but nothing else. It is carbureted, so in order to use the choke, it's right here, very hidden. Normally you have it on the handlebars, but you push it down to choke it and up for normal operation. Time to do a cold start of it, so I'm going to put the key in the ignition, turn it on. It's still kind of cold, but center stand is here. You should be able to kind of just bring it right up. Very easy to do. Let's see what the position on this bike is. It's almost like a standard bike, but it feels different. One thing that you notice is that you kind of feel like you are manhandling this thing, especially at like low speed corners. It's a little bit harder to turn, but this is the way I would sit on it. So my femur is almost horizontal, your feet are slightly back, and my arms are at a slight bend. When you put your feet on the ground, often I find myself kind of like doing this, but It's a comfortable position, and normally I sit like this, but when I twist the throttle, I get kind of sent backwards into this lumbar area. And there is no wind protection, so you're constantly getting bombarded by the wind. Remember, this bike is not meant for touring, not meant for commuting, not really meant for twisty riding. It's a fun bike. It's like you go out for maybe 50, 60 miles, and that's pretty much it. So a lot of these bikes you don't see high mileage because they're not high mileage bikes. You get a Goldwing, you might see 100,000 miles, very typically on older Goldwings, but not this. Handlebars are very narrow on this, so that's something that you're going to have to get used to. And they are not like a lot of the 80s bikes where it swoops back like this. They're more motocross type of handlebars, but they still are very thin compared to what we have nowadays with adventure bikes. People have moved on to very wide handlebars. Also, when you sit on it, my legs hit this piece, and I think that's pretty normal. I'm 5'9", so I'm kind of like an average height, but if you're a larger rider, this might not really fit you. Alright guys, it is time to see what this VMAX can do. Let's go for a ride and see how this thing rides. The VMAX is, I think, one of Yamaha's most interesting bikes. You know, Yamaha's made great bikes throughout their entire history, and I'm a big fan. You know, of course, the Tenere 750s, FZR, the FZ1, the FJR, but this bike is unlike any other Yamaha. The engine itself came from a touring bike, or at least the configuration, the V4. So this bike's engine was on a touring bike called the Adventure Royale. This thing is just a raw bike. This is really unlike any other bike. This is like a dragster. You have very narrow handlebars, and they're not flat. There's something about this bike. It's got so much character. A lot of Japanese bikes, they're guilty of not having character. They're universal Japanese engines, but not this. Even though this feels like a standard seating position, you're kind of forward a little bit like a sports bike, but your feet are higher up. So it feels like your thighs, like your femur, is actually like completely level, and your feet are back, and your arms are kind of stretched, or not stretched, like you're kind of sitting inclined to the front. It's uncomfortable for long periods. There's a lot of negatives, but you also have this. One of the things that Yamaha did was put the tachometer down here, so you can't really see it. I don't know why, because I think the tachometer on a bike is probably important. I mean, I'm not going that fast, but the bike sounds like it's just going at terminal speed. And this is a great sounding engine, man. I don't know, I guess it reminds me of something out of Mad Max. You don't get this bike if you're the type of person that wants to go get groceries. This is not that bike. This is not a bike where you go and get your baguette, your bread and your cheese, and you put it on your bike. No, this is a bike where you go and you go steal candy from babies and doing burnouts in the middle of the street. In a way, it reminds me of the first, or I guess the second generation of the Speed Triple. Yeah, I hit reserve. Oh my lord. The mileage that you get. Oh, this would upset the environmentalists so much. Every time you see a straightaway on this bike, it's a race. This is something that you're going to be doing often on the VMAX. There's the V-boost. It almost feels like the tires are slipping. What's the third gear roll on? And that's why this bike is so unique. Like, it really does not have any utility whatsoever. It's not a sports bike, it's not really a cruiser, it's not a utility bike, it's not a commuter, it's not a tourer. It's a very small niche of the market, but it tends to have a lot of appeal. This one's in great shape. Motorola USA is selling this currently, so if you are interested in buying this, check out his channel, send him a message. I think this is one of those bikes that is going to appreciate in value just because of the uniqueness and the characteristics that this bike has. I don't think any other bike I know is this. This is like a dragster in its purest form, stock from the factory. It's got the stock exhaust. It sounds really good, and unfortunately in the ride that we did, the sound does not come across on video. It's loud, but yet at the same time it's not overly aggressive. So that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure you hit like and subscribe, and check out Motorola USA on YouTube, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.